you go. Okay.
Alex, you are a winner.
Hey.
Yes, 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 yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Winning Workplace Wednesdays. It is Wednesday, August the 2nd, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Alex Rand. I met Alex also at Education 2.0. I met so many amazing people at
So many. Yeah.
Education. Oh my goodness, 2.0. Shout out to them
hmm
again. And I'm so grateful that you accepted the invitation to be interviewed today. So, would you kindly introduce yourself to our listeners?
Absolutely. So first off, thank you. Great
Of
to be here.
course.
Um, so my name is Alex Rand, and I am an educator. I teach middle school humanities. I'm also an adjunct professor at Mount St. Mary's University. So yeah, super psyched about both of those positions. And then also this fall, actually in September, about a month from now, I am beginning a doctoral program at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, focusing on occupational leadership. So very, very excited to get that going as well. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
There's a Mount St. Mary's University in this area, in Virginia, I think there is.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you said, I was like, oh,
Beautiful.
yeah, there's a sister school on the East Coast too.
Oh, very cool.
Yes,
Beautiful.
yes, it's a really nice school. I had one of my
Hmm.
buddies from there. So can you please share a little bit about your journey and how did you decide? There's so many
Hmm.
careers out there with the traditional doctors, lawyers. I think being an educator is a traditional career
hmm
way back compared to some of the new careers like YouTubing. Um,
Right. Yeah.
Cybersecurity is new, as well as what else is new out there in the world. Those are the two that come to my mind. So,
hmm
how did you, as a little boy coming up, did you always wanted to be an educator?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I think I tried everything outside of teaching before I became a teacher. Both of my parents were teachers.
Okay,
My mom was a high school French teacher for over 30 years. My
nice.
dad was a PE teacher. He didn't care for it very much though. So I think I'm not even sure how long
You taught.
he lasted. I mean, he may have done like 5 years, maybe less, maybe more. I don't know, but not very long. I don't think it was for him.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I had a number of careers before this. I
Give
worked
me a little
in
two of
bars.
them.
What's that?
Give me two of them. What did you do before you got into it?
Sure. So I worked in bars and restaurants for a long time. I was also a mortgage broker for Wells Fargo.
Wow.
So, I kind of ran the spectrum. And then what was it? In 2008, I had been, it didn't really apply, but you'll understand how it applies in a moment. Prior to 2008, I had been going back and forth between the United States and Paris, France. A number of times I studied in Paris and I really wanted to live there. And I found a program which was asking native English speakers to come to France and teach in classrooms.
Nice.
And so it was a 1 year program, and I was accepted. I went to France, and I was there for a year teaching in two elementary schools. And by the time I finished, I realized, oh, okay, this is what I want to do.
Nice.
So yeah, that's
Man,
all it took.
the
Yeah,
eureka moment happened. That's so awesome. And
absolutely.
and so I'm guessing some of your family members is from France. Is your mom taught French?
No, no, actually, no. French was just something that my mom was passionate about.
Mhm.
Um, And as kids, we knew a little French. She didn't teach us too much though. Um, but then when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to travel to France with her and some of her students,
Nice.
and that really changed my whole life. So
That's
absolutely,
amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. I love international travel. What's your favorite
hmm
to visit?
What's my favorite place to visit?
Uh-huh.
Ooh, in Paris or just anywhere in the world?
In the world.
Oh, Probably still Paris.
Yeah, I mean it's beautiful from what I haven't been, but from the pictures
It's
I
yeah, it's home to me. It's
see.
just every time I get there, I just go like, okay,
Yeah.
relax, let it go.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's so
yeah,
awesome. So
yeah.
awesome. So as we met back at Education 2.0, we shared the same passion for educating and seeing
Hmm.
our clients, your students thrive. Can you please share what are the top three challenges you see today in the space of middle school? I know from my vantage point, I understand that fentanyl, some of the drug dealers are
Uh-huh.
targeting middle school students, which was so disheartening for me to hear that and understand that. What do you think are some of the? Let's start with the first. What do you think is one of the challenges?
Yeah, so I think one of the initial challenges right off the bat is simply funding.
Okay,
Funding for schools. I work in a charter school, and every day the bottom line is is probably one of the main driving factors in whether a program moves forward or doesn't move forward. Um, in addition to that, I would say that another major challenge is actually meeting the students where they are and understanding who they are. And then, if you can manage those two things, I think you're probably in a pretty good position to continue to build with the students. I would also say probably, and I don't know about this because this isn't my experience, but from what I understand, that within some schools, just lack of opportunity for the teachers to be creative and authentic with their teaching. I think sometimes the standards that are created through the different state standards and federal standards are implemented in too much of a rigorous and concrete way that doesn't allow the teachers to actually blow or breathe their own essence and vision into the standards.
interesting.
Um, don't get me wrong. I actually, unlike a lot of people that I know, I like the Common Core state standards. I thought they did a really nice job of approaching upper level thinking, really providing opportunities for teachers to become creative.
Hmm.
That's my perspective on Common Core. I know when it was rolled out about, oh wow, it's probably been about 10 years now. There was a lot of backlash, and I think that some of that resistance still exists today. Um, but I like Common Core, but my issue is simply that when things become so systematic that a person isn't able to maneuver um,
The frame.
within that design, it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I am going to throw an audible. This question was not on the list of questions,
Mm,
but since you brought up Common Core and when it was
yeah,
initially rolled out, right now in the news, people are talking about Florida and their curriculum. Any
right.
thoughts on that? Without getting
You
into
know,
politics, of course. I personally,
right.
let me share my thoughts as a
Sure.
person of color. So for me, I believe that education starts at home. I believe I'm from the US Virgin Islands. Again,
Mm,
majority of everyone on the islands look like me, majority.
hmm.
But then I went to an HBCU. So my view is a lot of African American history, a lot of
Yeah,
Black
right.
history.
Right.
So and plus in my household, who you are, whose you are, that was taught to me. So I do think that it should be a part of the curriculum. I haven't been following all of it, but I definitely feel like it's been such a controversial topic. As an educator, wanted to know what were your thoughts?
Well, my un- my understanding of what's going on in Florida is that they are teaching a perspective or an idea that slavery was somehow beneficial to the slaves,
I don't even know.
or the enslaved people is the appropriate terminology.
Hmm.
So far as I know, um, Okay, I need a moment. I'm in the interview. Okay. But you may have more just when I'm done.
Wait.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, so given this idea, I think here's my thing about this. Any curriculum you teach, and let me just back this up by saying I think that specific stance is extremely egregious and inappropriate. Um, but furthermore, any curriculum you present, as long as you're not asking students to approach it with a critical lens, it could potentially be problematic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our job as teachers is not to simply say, here's the message, digest it,
Mm-hmm.
and take it as truth.
I
Our job as teachers is to provide a message and say, what do you
agree.
think?
Yes.
Let's look at this from a variety of perspectives.
Yes.
You don't have to agree with my position.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have an idea of what I think this means, and you might have a different idea, but as long as you're able to approach it with critical thought,
Yes.
that then I applaud you, you
Yes, that
know.
is such a psychologically
So
safe point of view. Whenever I am, in the classroom and I had a professor, the best class is when there was discourse, right? When it wasn't
yes,
just a
yeah,
lecture, but everybody could pitch in and give a different perspective, a different purview of what they think about that topic. So I absolutely love your answer. Alex for president.
yeah, you know it. And you're exactly right. We want to have discourse. We want to be able to honor different perspectives. Um,
You're good. I know that you're
yeah,
there
okay.
as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's just really important to be able to honor those different perspectives and um, just create an environment where those kinds of perspectives are safe.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Indeed. I mean, school will be boring or hostile if you're not able to share your opinion.
Mm,
Who wants to go to that type of a school? So you
right, right.
mentioned meeting students where they are. And so sometimes there are different paths, whether it's a center where people can get a learning specialist to sit alongside them and help them get where they need to go.
Hmm.
Your public charter schools, are there spaces like that? Is there like a special education or a learning specialist that helps meet them where they are?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Those are always provided. I shouldn't say always. In the case of my school, it's provided. I would suspect that it is required for all schools.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say that probably all schools, at least public and charter schools, are required to have some kind of sped program
Yeah,
within the bounds of the school. Definitely.
I would concur. In American,
Um,
go right ahead. I was
really, really quick, one other thing that I would say about that is also meeting students where they are is really understanding where they're coming from and
yes,
I mean, it's more than just walking them through the door. It's understanding what their home life is like. It's understanding
yes,
what is going on with them culturally. It's understanding who they are, especially in middle school as things evolve. We see a lot of things, a lot of kids going through things with regards to age, race, gender, sexuality, all of these things, because they're really in that process of transition and transformation.
yes.
And if we just kind of like disregard those things or let those things go, a lot of times that serves to alienate us from the student. And as all teachers and all educators know, connection is the thing
It is.
that provides the opportunity for learning.
I'm so glad that we digged our heels in deeper because they talk about how many students come to school and they're hungry.
Yeah.
They didn't
Hmm.
have breakfast, or how many students go back home and there's not someone there assisting them with their homework, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Right.
There's not, all fields are not evenly distributed, or God forbid if there's any type of abuse, happening in the home. So, yes, understanding each student and what they're going through really helps in a space where if you saw someone not being able to function until 12, until after they had lunch, in a situation like that, how would you approach that student? Is there anything that you can do? Do they provide breakfast at the public charter school?
Yeah, they do. And so it's interesting that you bring that up because one of my first jobs in a school was working as a behavior specialist,
Mhm.
where the majority, I would say 95% of the students that I would come into contact with on a daily basis were students that are considered not school ready. And so these are the students you mentioned who they don't have food at home. They are witnesses to abuse or other kinds of illegal activities. They are subject to neglect. So, um, so this is something that's very real. I don't experience that very much in the school that I'm at right now, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yes.
Um, and yet, at the same time, I understand that even at the school where I am now, the students are they're still going through their own things in their own way, and they are there are still students who are suffering in a variety of ways. They may not be as extreme, but it's a it's only a question of relativity. To them it feels extreme, to them it feels severe, so then you're still working with them,
Absolutely.
and that stuff supersedes, hey, can you multiply these numbers together, can you manage fractions,
Exactly.
can you give me a list of 10 dates, 10 significant dates for the Roman Empire.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes, Alex. And so, do you think there's enough support in the counseling space to address some of the opportunities that are brought to the table?
that's a field that, like everything in education, we can always use more,
Yes.
and we can always use more people, and we can always use people who are going to attempt to use a variety of strategies.
Yes.
When I started in the schools, as I mentioned, as behavior specialist, people were telling me, well, oh, hey, you're really doing a great job with these kids. Why don't you consider a career in special education? Which I did for a while as well. I was a one-on-one for
Yeah.
students with moderate to severe autism. Um, but my point is that they said, you will never have to look for work.
Exactly.
There aren't enough
Wow.
people who want to do this job.
Wow.
And so that extends to your question. There will never be enough people available to meet the needs of the clientele or the students that are actually in the classroom. There just aren't,
Wow. 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 That
you
is
know. Which,
deep. I went to a workshop and learned that is the education field is changing and they don't
yes.
necessarily see it as a long-term career field, that it's a trend, it's now going to be
Mm-hmm.
coined as a traditional uh, as a transitional field where there'll be ebbs and flows, people will come in and leave,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because number one, the pay, depending on where you are, what state you are in, and just seeing there are just so many new things that come up that may pique someone's interest. Whereas instead of someone being
Right.
there for 25, 30 years and retiring, that's not necessarily the trend that they're seeing. Is it similar? Have you seen that in the school that you're in?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a perfect example. I'm going back for my doctorate. I will finish in 3 years. After that 3 year phase, of course, I'm going to go out and apply for different jobs. Those jobs are. I will not remain a teacher with a doctorate.
Yes,
Right. At that point, I'm moving into directorial positions. I'm moving into administrative positions or something like that.
yes,
So it's a simple question of, okay, do I want to continue to teach in a classroom for 15 to 20 years to make the same kind of money I can make in 5 years?
yes, yes,
You
yes.
know what I'm saying? And when you look at it that way, it's like, well, invest your time and effort now So that way, in 3 to 5 years, you can start making the money that you want to make, as
Yes.
opposed to staying in a job for the next 15 or 20, just so then you can make the money that you actually want to. And, it's hard as a teacher because it always comes down to the kids. Nobody ever wants to walk away from a classroom.
That's right. That's right.
Like,
That's right.
teachers love their kids. There's no other reason to be there except for you love the
Calling.
kids,
That's right. The calling.
Yeah.
You want to be there. You
Hmm.
still want to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's tricky like that, but I can see how the field is shifting. I think that just careers in general are shifting. I think that what we're starting to see is that old model of going into a job and working it for 30 years and then exiting with a pension or whatever. People are saying like that doesn't work anymore,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
Because people are realizing they want to learn and grow. They don't want to just stick,
Yes.
you know. So given that situation, I don't know if that scenario is specific to education. I see it as directly impacting education. Furthermore, I think that the pandemic really, really impacted education in
Absolutely.
a major way, which was very unfortunate.
Yes. Yes. And yes. Mass shootings. We have
Right.
seen them time and time again, where individuals with mental health come into the schools and there's a massacre. Do you
Right.
feel safe in your school?
Um, those kinds of situations are very strange or nebulous because you don't think it's ever going to happen where you are until it happens.
Yes, yes,
I think my school is a very safe school. We share a campus with another school, another middle school.
nice.
And either way, between the two schools, I would never expect anything like that to happen. That doesn't mean that it couldn't happen.
Yes,
Um, I've seen in the past situations where students have students have created a number of different, what's the word I'm looking for? They have created, a number of different or they've given out like the warning signs. So
wow.
you're like, oh, this, like, something's happening over there. We need to keep an eye on it. And the interesting thing is that at least in the state of California, unless a direct threat is made, that student stays in the school. So until the kid says this is going down on this day, it's like, well, they were just, maybe they were curious, maybe they didn't know, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, well,
Wow.
if they were seen researching guns online or researching things like that online, I don't know. I think it's one of those scenarios where we will never have an appropriate response to it. It's just one of those things. It's already ballooned. It's already become this snowball where people revere mass shooters. Um,
See, that's, I see that. I see that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
see,
I read articles all the time of like, oh, another mass shooter was thwarted because they caught on to them, but they were in like online chat groups saying like, oh, these other mass shooters were amazing, and I want to emulate them.
oh no.
So, and again, as you mentioned before, this comes back to mental health.
Yes.
Um, and so I think a lot of time and energy needs to be spent in focusing on mental health and mental health awareness.
Yes.
Um, but given the students that I see or have seen in the past who were not school ready, it's entirely possible that these children who are at home by themselves for extended periods of time, and life has not been easy on them already,
Yes.
that they start to develop some kind of angst. I mean, teens have angst with good lives.
Just going through the regular hormones,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
what's happening?
yeah,
What is
yeah,
going on?
exactly. Yeah, they're full
Yes.
of angst anyways.
Yes.
So, add to that like very difficult home lives
Yeah.
or any other type of, terrible thing that may happen to an individual, I can understand why they might start to attach their minds to
Yeah.
those kinds of ideas. Um, Again, I don't think enough time is spent within schools to really appropriately um, focus on this potential threat.
Are
We
there
don't spend
rounds?
enough time talking about
I wonder if there's like rounds, where police officers can just drive by and have more of a presence.
I don't know. It's it's one of those situations that is very, from my perspective, very, very difficult to pinpoint, and I'm not sure that there is any right answer. Yeah, I don't know necessarily that an increase in police, or like schools are advocating for armed guards in the schools, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure that that's the correct response. But again, I don't know. I don't know, that would deter anybody. And
Wow, that's deep. Wow. I guess in my mind,
yeah,
wow. I would like to hope and think that if someone sees a police officer of authority who has a gun on his hip, like, okay, I was bugging out, I had anxiety, I was going to do this, but I'm going to get in trouble, I'm going to go back home and rest or something, that it would deter them. But wow,
yeah, I'm not sure that it would. I think by the time it gets to that point, they are ready to go deeper.
wow, 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 that is so deep. But we will continue to pray for those in authority, the administrators that make those
Hmm.
decisions to protect
Hmm.
the faculty, staff, and of course our precious students. So I
Yeah,
think
of
you've
course.
answered question 8, but if you can elaborate your next project. So you're about to go into your doctoral studies, and it sounds
Yes.
like you're going to be studying psychology.
Yeah, well, the program is through Chicago School of Psychology. So, what I'm looking at right now, what my initial proposal is to look at the implementations of holistic systems within either schools or corporations.
Okay.
And so, um, even if it's within schools, it would focus on the faculty and staff
Mhm.
rather than the students.
Yes.
Because what I'm attempting to do here is, or what I'm attempting to investigate, I should say, is really how can we adjust the work-life balance so that work doesn't become this thing where people are going in and they're like, oh, I just got to make it through the week. I just got it, like, okay, it's only Tuesday, and et cetera.
Yes. I want to be done already. I wish it was
Mm-hmm.
Friday. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Work shouldn't be something that you don't look forward to.
I agree. I agree. And that's why you are a guest here on Winning Workplace Wednesdays. Off the top
Thank
of
you.
your head, I mean, I like to not only have the podcast here, but encourage employers to have that at work, whether it's in a corporation, in a school, whatever the environment is, have an opportunity to, hey, on one day of the week, it doesn't have to necessarily be Wednesday, that executive, that administrator, head of school, to go and have lunch in the cafeteria, get to know your people, spend
Mm-hmm.
some time,
Yep.
let them ask you a question. No question is a silly question. Circle back with them, get to know their kids, what's happening, create a safe space so that people want to
Right.
come, know the
Right.
people. If they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I think that's one suggestion, to try to help it to be a positive environment where people are looking forward to coming to work. Any ideas off
Absolutely.
the top of your head?
Yeah. I mean, riffing on that, I would say that that's really a question of managerial style and the kind of culture you decide to create. I think that we've been operating with a hierarchical culture for far too long. I think that it builds up walls as opposed to creating bridges. And also, I feel like I just feel like the culture has become something where people feel like they're unable to reach out to admin, and
That breaks my
that's not functional.
heart, Alex. That breaks my heart. Why is that? How is the HR person in your school? I mean, the divide breaks my heart. Like, it shouldn't be. This morning, I was listening to a sermon, and it was just talking about the importance of, it was talking about the difference between a title and a
Mm,
position of authority, right? Because you
hmm.
have a title of principal, right? Or
Right.
assistant principal. And so you have a level of authority with that title compared to the football coach, who doesn't really have a big title,
Right.
but he has influence.
Yes.
Or that
Yes.
French teacher that has influence, that everybody wants to learn French because of the
Hmm.
culture and the environment that he or she creates in the classroom. Or that coach, whether it's, lacrosse or football or whatever the sport is, but they create
Hmm.
a space where colleagues, they're comfortable speaking to that person, or the students come in and they just want to speak with they create the bridges, right? They create
Hmm.
the bridges where there are connections instead of
Yes.
walls and barriers. I just wish that
Yeah.
more leadership, whether it's the C-suite or the executive team at the schools, are able to create those bridges so that it's not about necessarily a position of authority, but serving that servant leadership and serving from
Hmm.
a place of influence. You've earned the respect from everyone that
Right.
it's easy to come and ask a question. Your thought?
Hmm. Yeah. They say people don't quit jobs; they quit managers.
Yes.
And so, with that in mind, I think that, as whatever level manager is out there, it's important to understand how you are affecting your workforce and the people who are working with you.
Yes.
Um, and, I've seen it time and time again. Like you said, there are people who they just hold a lot of energy and a lot of sway within the arena, whether they are, whether they have that top title or whether they have the lowest title. They're just someone that people look to. Um, and so, what I would say as a manager is if you have a person like that, don't keep them at that level.
I agree.
So, like, look at
Elevate
them,
them.
understand that they have that kind of energy, and bring them up.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. You know what? I wish. I mean, that is the answer. Elevate, promote,
Yeah.
partner. How can
Yeah.
we get this person to get to the next level?
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
where it's at. What has been your greatest accomplishment thus far?
Being a father.
Oh,
Hmm.
that's so sweet. That is so
Hmm.
sweet. Do you have one, two, three? How many kids do you have?
Just one.
That's awesome. That's more than enough. That's more than
Yeah.
enough. So excited.
She's a Gemini, so there's two in there already. So.
Oh, wow. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
sweet. That's
Yeah.
so,
She
so
keeps me
sweet.
busy for sure.
Congratulations. I
Thank you.
really look forward one day to have that experience.
Uh,
And then lastly, what is the one thing you want the viewers and listening audience to take away from our interview today? Winning Workplace
um,
Wednesdays.
I mentioned this at the conference in the panel, but I'll reiterate it here. Take your time to really understand what exists in front of you today
Yes.
and what you want to see happen.
Yes.
They say be the change that you want to see in the world. That's completely applicable. It starts with you.
Yes. Yes.
Don't go out and try and change the world. You're not going to do it. You
Yes.
can change yourself, and then through changing yourself, number one, you change your perspective,
Yes.
and then secondly, just kind of as that energy shifts, people are going to start coming around. The kind of the people that you want to see and the kind of energy that you want to build is going to continue to move forward, or the momentum will increase. So at the conference we spoke about paradigm shifting and educating the marginalized, or educating from the margins, for that matter.
Yeah.
And my big thing is really, what kind of paradigms exist today,
Mhm.
and what kind of paradigms would you like to see?
Yes.
Because there's no reason that we continue to maintain the paradigms that exist today.
I
If they
agree.
don't if they don't serve the majority of the population, then let's change
Yes, let's change it.
that.
I concur. If someone has the power of influence, if they're reaching the masses and
Yeah,
they don't have
yeah,
an opportunity right now to grow, have them to pull up a chair. What are some of your thoughts? Have them join a
yeah,
committee, empower them.
yes,
Don't have them looking at a competitive school and then you end up losing that person who was such a pillar in your community. Empower those that have the voice that's making the change and
absolutely.
continue to grow. The only person you can change is yourself. So
Yeah.
continue to grow. Kudos to you. Congratulations on that
Mm.
doctoral program. That's
Thank you.
cannot wait to see what your next move is going to be, whether you'll be a principal or I don't know if you want to do tenureship and be a professor. Um, but all the best to you. And thank you so
Thank you.
much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Oh, it's been an honor. Thank you.
Yes, you are awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Alex Rand, middle school teacher, professor, assistant professor, and soon to be doctor and making a difference in his
You
space.
know it.
If he
You
can do
know it.
it, you can do it. Sky's the limit. Let's take it
You
one step
know
at
it.
a time, change the world one decision at a time, starting with ourselves. Until
There
next
you
time,
go.
keep shining. Hold 1 second. I am going to end.